All right, my lovely friends, welcome to my newest segment of Markets, a Look Ahead. It is Sunday, October 14th, 2018. Lots of stuff going on I want to cover, and I can promise you starting tomorrow, when the markets open, it's going to be interesting. I think, me personally, as a trader, I'm very focused on what's going on. I want to cover a lot with you here. So let's talk about what's going on, what we've been seeing, and what will likely unfold. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Now, let's just back up in time a little bit. If you remember, we were hearing day after day after day regarding these trade wars here, how President Trump was going to hit them with more tariffs. And then we had a pretty significant sell-off in the bond market. That was not a coincidence that this happened. I explained to all of you that this is the escalating trade war. It's China, who happens to be the second largest holder of U.S. debt on the planet, second only to the Federal Reserve. And they don't hold our debt because they like us. They don't hold our debt because they think it's a good investment. They're holding our debt because they can use our debt against us, because it's a terrible liability in a situation like this. They also hold huge amounts of dollars for the same reasons. They've been stockpiling these things, the Chinese, for a very long time. They know how to play the game, and they're very patient. I explained this to you. Now, with regard to the trade war, how we were hearing all this rhetoric day after day, when we started getting some gyrations in the bond market, which I've covered, almost a radio silence with regard to hearing increased rhetoric with regard to China. But you're not supposed to know that. You're supposed to think and believe that we are winning this trade war. Meanwhile, China's trade surplus against the United States just hit a new all-time record high. So again, how could they be losing the trade war if they have a record high trade surplus? You understand? It's the misleading of the public that really gets under my skin, and it just seems that nobody has the guts to tell the American people the truth here. And again, there's a lot of people who believe there's a secret plan, that President Trump needs a secret plan that he needs to implement to get rid of the Fed. He can't tell the truth that he wants to get rid of the Fed, and he can't tell the American people this. He has to keep it secret. It's a joke. It's if it weren't so in our face, ridiculous, I would be laughing right now. It's just not true, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate from this, because there are some people who cannot get out of their head that there is no conspiracy here with regard to that. It's incredible. But go on believing what you're believing. And again, I can promise you that the Federal Reserve will still be standing when President Trump leaves office. And if you don't believe that, we'll see who's correct over time. All right. With that said, let's move further. What caused the sell-off last week? Well, is it because stocks are just massively overvalued? Is it because stocks are in the stratosphere and we're in bubble territory? Well, maybe that's part of it, but it got started when President Trump started attacking the Federal Reserve here. Again, the system is fake. The system is not real. The system is built on confidence. What President Trump will not tell you is that the stock market's values and valuations have been driven by a runaway central bank that has done nothing but suppress interest rates for over an entire decade. Candidate Trump understood this dynamic and spoke out against it. He said specifically that the Federal Reserve was supporting the stock market to make Obama look good, but under him, it's all good. You understand? The stock market needs to correct. Will it be allowed to do that? That's what I want to talk about here. So we already understand that China is a major, in fact, it's the largest factor, period, with regard to where our bond market is going. Forget the Federal Reserve. Forget the Fed. The sell-off that we had. As a matter of fact, let me put another light on this for you, because I know there's a lot of people that are confused. When the Federal Reserve raised interest rates, now we're talking about the federal funds rate. So before you go off the deep end, understand what this is. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you. You're going to do a little bit of work on your own. Look up the federal funds rate so you can understand how this whole thing works. So the Federal Reserve raised the federal funds rate 25 basis points. Stocks went up higher. They did not drop. So this should tell you something about what's coming out of the mouth of Washington and our president specifically. He cannot let you know that it's China that is implementing pressure on the bond market. Can't let you know that because we're winning the trade war. You understand? Every politician is the same. And the job of government, understand, is not to protect you. It's to protect themselves, the government. That's it. Okay. Very simple, very straightforward. We understand that the sell-off in the market was driven by a lack of confidence. The market needs certainty. When the market hears things like our president rhetoric out of his mouth against a Federal Reserve that has done nothing but support him and raise stock prices, again, this is deliberate engineered environment of risk. It's not real. But that's the illusion President Trump has been using. Now, again, I am not against President Trump. I voted for the man. Understand this. If you're new here, I want him to succeed, but I also want him to tell the truth. I don't think that's too much to ask. Okay? No secret plans needed. Level with the American people, and we'll back him up. I know I would back him up. If the president were to say, hey, Greg Mannarino, I want to end the Fed. How do you feel about it? My hand's going up. I'm sure yours is too. But again, we need a secret plan, right? Try not to laugh. All right, so anyway, this is what we're going to do, both you and me. In the description of this video is a link to my website, traderschoice.net. I want you to click on that. We're going to open up that page. You can watch this video right there. We're going to talk about some charts. We're going to make some sense, or at least try, to what's going on. So click on that link. And if you're on my website already, let's go. So here we are on my lovely website. Let's go down here to the bottom of the page, all the way down the middle. Technical analysis gauge for the S&P 500. As you can see, we have a sell signal here. Now understand, and I'm going to say this for the millionth time, this gauge right here has been right about 85% of the time since I put it up. That's a pretty good record, but technical analysis is not the end all. There are people that are pure technical traders. I don't know how they do it. I'm going to be honest with you. Most, but not all, technical indicators are lagging. So you get a delayed effect. And that's kind of what you're going to see here for the most part. But that's why this is just one tool. It's an important tool, but only one tool nonetheless. You have to consider outliers, like we're seeing now, like rhetoric out of the president's mouth, like what China's playing with here in the markets. This is other geopolitical events. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. Use this tool, but it's only one tool. Very important, okay? We're getting a sell signal here. Let's decipher this a little further. We got 9 indicators that are saying sell, 10 neutral, 7 buy. Okay, so you can see what this, you got to put this into context. All right, now let's go right above this here to a chart here, which I put together with indicators that I want you to have a look at. I want you to click anywhere on the chart, right in the middle of it, and I want you to scroll up. It'll magnify the chart. Let's look here. Big sell-off, as you can see here. Now, let's talk about what happened on Friday so we can kind of understand what might be happening. And at least it's trying to do this. We witnessed, again, some substantial gyrations up and down that were epic. On Thursday, the market at one time was down 699 points. When it hit that trigger, whatever, it rocketed back up and only down 260. We did finish down 500 and plus. But if you notice, when we hit that level, something happened there. There's a lot of buyers. The same thing happened on Friday. Market sold off. We were at 415 points higher. We went negative. Market got bought up again. We finished higher, 280 points, I believe it was. So you can see what's going on here. What I'm talking about is every time the market gets down to a certain level, it's getting bought up. Whether that's the plunge protection team, whether that's institutional investors, I'm not sure who's buying here. There's no way to tell. A lot of this big stuff is done through the dark pools. You all know that. There's no way to trace it. So with that said, we might, and I explained this on Friday, be seeing some kind of a bottoming process. Does not mean it's going to hold. We need to look at bond market and dollar. You know that. This is where China comes in here. This is not the Fed. If China decides, China, let me just say this, has not been buying U.S. debt since the trade war started. We need, and I cannot stress this word enough, need underlined a million times, someone out there to buy our debt. If people aren't buying our debt, we're in a lot of trouble here. Our interest rates will spike, put pressure on the stock market, and boom, this whole illusion becomes real. You understand? This is a fake environment being supported on the back of debt, never-ending debt that has to keep being built up and built up and built up. We all know President Obama, the debt doubled under this guy during his tenure. It will double again under President Trump. As a matter of fact, President Trump, and do your own research on this, don't take my word for it, has outspent President Obama in the same time period. You will not hear about that. You're not allowed to know. But that's the truth. Look it up for yourself. Do not take my word for it. Okay? Period. So we understand we've had a sell-off here. We have what may be a bottoming process in the markets. Now let's look at a couple of other things. Where it says SPX, I want you to put in, which we always do here, GLD, enter. Paper derivative of gold. Look what's going on here. I've explained this to you for weeks. I said we look like we were in a bottoming process, getting bought up here. You can see those green candlesticks over there. So that's interesting to know. Let's put in SLV, enter. Same kind of thing. So this could be a tell that maybe we've seen a bottom here with. This is the paper derivative market. It's not real. It's not on the elemental chart. They can dump as much paper as they want onto the market, but there's going to be a moment here when, again, everything corrects to fair value. Now what I want to do here, look over here at the bond market chart. You can see all the buying, and then you saw a late day sell-off. Watch the 10-year yield. I can't stress this enough. We watched it go from a 3.26 to a 3.13, epic amounts of bond buying to prop up that bond market and force cash into the stock market. It worked. It worked Friday. We'll see how that plays out. Now let's look underneath that chart at the US dollar bullish ETF. Big sell-off there. And then we started to get bought up. So these are dynamics that we need to pay attention to. What the market does not want to see is the dollar getting stronger at the same time bonds are selling off. Now, another factor here that we need to consider, again, there's a lot of things. This is where you can't just go by technical analysis. Despite China not being labeled a currency manipulator, something our president promised he would do during the campaign, and this got burned into my brain because I followed the campaign and I wanted him to label, I really did, I wanted him to label China a currency manipulator, and he said he would do it. He backed off and said China is not a currency manipulator. Meanwhile, they just devalued the yuan to an 18-month low. Not a peep. You don't hear a thing out of it, and you know why. Look, our debt is a monstrous liability, and our president is well aware that China is weaponizing that debt. So I don't know how this is going to end up playing out down the line, but if you notice, the rhetoric has almost gone radio silent on China, on this trade war here. Something has to be done. But again, right now the distraction is, pastors that are being freed and all this stuff like that. And I understand that's so important and stuff, but it's look here, don't look here. The American people are easily distracted. pulled along like they're being puppetized. I've explained this to you for the longest time. You're not allowed to know certain things. You're being forced to look at in one place when you should be looking in another. It's the same story. It never changes. But there are a certain group of people here that are so sucked into this that they're blind. They're absolutely blinded. And they have to believe in conspiracy theories. And believe our president just can't come out and tell us the truth. I find that very disturbing. Very, very disturbing. And comical. All right, with that said, I am going to let you all go. I hope this has made sense to you. And we're gonna go over all this tomorrow when the market opens, when I do my market report in the morning. And I can promise you, whatever happens, this week is going to be fun. And we're going to cover all of it. Every single freaking thing. See you in the morning.